It's almost time for 2023's first major. 18 of the best teams from around the world will congregate in Lima for South America's first DPC LAN. But before they do, let's take a look back through the crystal ball. One of my favorite features of the Diesel engine is the wind projector it uses for group stage scenarios. I used this for the past tour's Division 1 teams before group play kicked off, and comparing the projections with the final results yielded some pretty interesting storylines. Of course, it's no mystery that some teams performed well below expectations, while others beat the odds and broke through in a big way. This video will cover some of the more extreme highlights and lowlights from around the DPC. But first, an introduction on how to read these projections. If you don't care, you can skip ahead to this time in the video, but I'll promise I'll try to make this quick and fun. Okay, the Diesel engine uses a predictive model to simulate a game between two teams. The simulation declares a winner, and each team's players get their ratings adjusted using the ELO rating formula. Using this model, I take the schedules for each region and simulate all of the best of 3 series in sequence. I tally up these series wins, run the simulator a million times, then average out the results. This leaves us with the likely win number and a chance for an additional win. For an example, here's Bleed Esports' results, 2.79. The whole number 2 is how many series wins the simulator projects for Bleed. The fractional number, 79, is the chance that Bleed ends up with 3 wins instead, so 79%. 20 teams, or over 40% in Division 1, were within 1 win of their projection, with 10 of those teams at or under half a game, which I take as being dead on with the initial projection. So now that you know how to read these projections, let's first talk about our overachievers in this past tour. On top of the differential graph is Southeast Asia's Execration, a team that really no one saw coming, beating their initial win projection by over 3. SEA is a bit of a wild card. A pretty mediocre performance at TI-11 has not helped an otherwise middling region standing in the world stage. However, its preseason analysis of being the world's most competitive division did not disappoint. Even with their escape velocity propelling them out of Division 2 in the previous summer tour, Execration's expectations were only slightly above those of the partially rebuilt Fnatic. To go 6-1, only dropping a game to Geek Slate and with only 1 player change from the last DPC to now, is pretty remarkable. Right behind them is TSM, whose plus 289 win differential erased any question of the largely rebuilt roster's ability to retain their place in the North American duopoly. Going into this tour, it was a toss-up between them and Nouns for the 2nd place spot in the region on the heels of Sonic's demise, behind the projected 1st place finish for Shopify Rebellion. TSM naturally responded to this by saying, "Saberlight who?" and took 1st place instead. That's king shit. Behind TSM is Team Liquid, which almost seems insulting, redundant to say that they exceeded expectations. Filling Matumba Man's shoes was going to be no easy task, but TI-11 runner-up Nisha has proven that it can actually look pretty easy. A clean 7-0 sweep through what is arguably the most daunting division in the world is laudatory enough, but beating a 4.27 win projection to surpass both the runner-up and the winner of the most recent international is a prize in its own right. The final highlight is Eastern Europe's Hellraisers, with an over 2.5 win differential. Getting 3rd behind most of TI-10's championship roster and the Ghost of Virtus Pro's most dominant lineup is no small feat, but their story is yet ongoing. With the departure of Dahak from the team, Hellraisers will need to test their new roster's mettle on one of Dota's biggest stages. They currently sit near the bottom of the rankings of the teams heading to Lima, but as evidenced here, being the underdogs is not an unfamiliar storyline for this team. It sucks to underperform. If you're Aster Aries, you already live in a tentative state of sponsorship. Qualifying for the international means that your team would need to shed its Aster associations and go it alone or with another org. Spending a tour down in Division 2 is, by contrast, a different kind of stress. With the potential of getting any TPC points delayed until the summer tour at the earliest, it now becomes a soul-searching mission to reevaluate personnel and mentally prepare for the inevitable possibility of regional qualifiers. In this way, the DPC structure is a bit overly fatalistic for teams that get relegated in the winter. Them's the breaks, though. Undershooting their projection by a little over 2, Aster Aries has taken eHome's spot next to Dawn Gaming in relegation. eHome has gone on to, in turn, take Extreme Gaming's spot at the Major. It's a pretty bummer trade if you ask me. Below them is North America's Alpha, who is always projected to be last place in an already pretty dire region. They were expected to get at least 2 wins, maybe a 1-3 shot to claim a 3rd, but to come away at the bottom of the pile with no wins is just an out-and-out bust. Alpha was never supposed to compete for a major spot, unlike the team directly below them, Natus Vincere. Projected to be just below Darkside to have the 4th most wins in Eastern Europe, Na'Vi has undergone a full-on collapse to the point of a complete disband. It's sad to see the original TI winning org implode like this, with players like Vtoon and Lays getting their last shot to make things work under that banner really just fizzle out. Na'Vi has been struggling to get their shot ever since failing to punch through the last chance qualifier at TI 11. One of the teams that took their slot is our biggest underperformer this tour, Team Secret. To go from 2nd place at the International to relegation to Division 2 is a blow much larger than their minus 3.04 win differential or their loss of 130 cumulative team rating. The addition of Resolution and Zayak over the course of last year seemed to make Team Secret make sense again, to be dominant again. To go from that to only being their new Division 2 contemporaries into the breach is a brutal reversal of fortune. And that's life for these Division 1 teams, present and former, at each end of the spectrum. You can find the full chart of win differentials over on Twitter or on Ko-fi, and don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube and over on the Medium blog so you know when the next video or article drops. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy the Lima Major.